Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to get this 4.0 for the Resurrection Cherokee running. Video of 2025, and of course, we're out here working on the Resurrection Cherokee. We're gonna start by removing the Dana 60 to prep it for paint. This is a huge video. We have more than enough on our plate that we need to accomplish. By the end of this video, we'll for sure have a Jeep going back together for final assembly, and we might just have a running engine. Axle is out, got it on the stands right here. We're gonna be doing a little bit of welding to this, and then this thing is gonna be done. The next time that this goes into that Jeep will be for final assembly. That seems literally crazy to say after this thing has been sitting in the garage for going on 13 months now. Real quick, everyone, as of this video dropping, we are also dropping extremely limited edition Backcountry Beagles merch. This is the BCB FAB hat. It's a Richardson 112, which is the best fitting hat in existence. Literally every single hat on the channel you've ever seen me wear is a Richardson 112. I actually designed this hat from scratch, and I think it came out absolutely amazing. Every hat sold will come with a Resurrection Cherokee patch and a Resurrection Cherokee blueprint sticker and a Backcountry Beagles logo sticker, all for a low price. Pretty good deal in my opinion. There are super limited quantities of these. Once they're gone, they're gone. I will never be making them again. So if you'd like to support the channel, go to backcountrybeagles.shop or click the link down below. With that being said, let's get back to work on the Resurrection Cherokee. Getting everything 100% done on this front axle is what's first today. This includes some welding and finishing these bump stop pads I talked about in the last video. I cut out 2 pieces from this HDPE 1-inch thick plastic. This is what the actual bump stop is going to be contacting. I could have gotten something stronger than HDPE. This stuff honestly might crack, but this HDPE was about $60 cheaper than my other options, so I'm willing to try it. I also have a lot of finish welding to do to the actual Jeep, stuff I didn't get to last video. This includes the track bar bracket, the bump stop brackets, and the limit strap tabs. And actually, that's about it. Now, in a previous video, we installed unibody stiffeners. I'm sure y'all probably saw that. I stitch welded these onto the unibody, which means there's a few inches of weld, no weld, a few inches of weld, and so on. We can't have any moisture getting under these stiffeners, so on those sections where there are no weld, I am installing seam sealer. I picked this stuff up in particular off of Amazon. It's actually pretty expensive. I think it's like $15 a tube. I would shop around because, like I said, this was an expensive tube. $15, that's not cheap. So just do some shopping and find what works best for you. All in all, this will keep out any water, dirt, or moisture that this Jeep may see. We've got the fire absolutely ripping in here. It is nice and warm in here. I've got a thermometer right here. You can see right now it's 39 degrees outside and 62 degrees in here. I've had that fire going for the past 2 days. I wanted to warm it up as much as we can in here, along with this metal that we're gonna be painting. So I'd say the average is probably around 65 degrees in here for the past 3 days. Today is day 3. Today is the biggest day. We're gonna be painting this Jeep, parts of it at least. We're gonna be painting this Dana 60. This thing is basically all ready to be painted. We're gonna be painting inside these wheel wells on both sides. We're gonna be painting the unibody rails underneath, and we're gonna be painting inside of this engine bay. I'm very, very excited for this. Yeah, so I figured I can't heat this whole shop for 3 days straight with the diesel heater. So that's why Ash and I went and picked up a cord of wood. It was pretty reasonably priced, and we're gonna be able to heat this shop for the rest of the season with all of this wood. This isn't all of it. We have a lot more outside. I'm just kind of trying to dry off these pieces because we had a few wet days, and it's working very well. This wood's burning really good. I finished welding everything that needed to be welded on the Jeep. I finished up these bump stop mounts, the track bar bracket, the limit strap tabs, literally everything. I went through all the areas we're gonna be painting, and I seam sealed where I wanted to seam seal, where it was needed. And then last night, I started taping off some stuff. I put this plastic around the Jeep, like the bumper. Obviously, we don't want that getting painted. I'm gonna be putting plastic over the rest of the Jeep right here very shortly. We're gonna have to move this axle. I'm gonna have to make room for it over here. It's a big freaking mess over here. On the wall here, you can see I have a tarp, and then over here, I have another one, and they're kind of on this wire. That is so, I built this so I can close this, and so we have something to spray against. So we're gonna be getting all of this junk out of here. I'm gonna be moving that axle over here, along with some other parts, like we're gonna be doing these unibearings, the axle shafts, I'm gonna be doing the tie rod and the drag link, and some brackets. There's one of my cross member brackets. I'm gonna get those all hung up over here and get those ready for paint. Because that's really one of the last things to do, right? And taping off the rest of the Jeep so we don't get overspray on it. We've got 4 different things that we're gonna be spraying today, and once we actually get to the spraying, I'll show you exactly what all of that is. There is so much prep work that goes into something like this. If you want good results, you can't rush the prep work. I underestimated how much I had to do before painting, so I haven't even gotten to the painting yet. This is actually the next day. So today, I had to wrap this Jeep up really good, prep all my miscellaneous parts, and prep the actual shop for painting. This paint is going to get everywhere, so if I don't cover everything with tarps or move what I can outside, it'll make cleanup that much more difficult. And believe me, you don't have to tell me. I understand this is not a professional operation. I am working with what I have and making the best of it. I hung all my parts from the shop in the FAR bay, hung the 60 with the engine hoist, and wiped all of this plus the Jeep down with acetone. Now the next step is paint. I have been prepping this Jeep and the inside of this garage for what we are about to do tonight, or part of it at least. Today, we are gonna start the process of painting this Jeep and the miscellaneous parts we have. I thought I was gonna have this Jeep and all these parts fully painted 2 days ago. Then I thought I was gonna have them painted yesterday, and here we are today. But tonight, we are gonna be starting this process by priming this Jeep and the miscellaneous parts that we have, including the Dana 60 for the front. And then tomorrow, and then another day, I'm gonna be doing the rest of it. But this is all gonna seem like it happened within 10 minutes for y'all. Anyways, to keep this short, let's talk about the paint right now. We're gonna be doing this process in 4 parts. Primer for the Jeep and all our miscellaneous parts, including the Dana 60. Black gloss for some of our miscellaneous parts, including the Dana 60. Our forest green top coat to match the Jeep for the inside of our engine bay. That includes the coilover towers and our cross brace as well. And actually, now that I think of it, this is gonna be 5 parts because on top of that forest green, we're gonna be adding a clear coat. And then last, step number 5, we're gonna be undercoating the underside of this Jeep, the unibody rails, those unibody stiffeners that we put on in a previous video, along with the front inner wheel wells on this Jeep. This undercoating is not just any regular undercoating. It is a sound deadening spray. This stuff I found works very well, and I'm very happy with it, which is why we're gonna
use it here again today. I know you can't see this table in front of me, but I'm gonna get some close-up shots for y'all. First off, we have our epoxy primer. This stuff is from a company y'all probably have heard of, which is Eastwood. This is a 2-part primer, which means we have our catalyst and our actual primer. This is not a how-to video, so I'm not gonna go into depth on literally how to do this, but basically we're gonna mix these two and spray it onto our parts. If you choose to use this stuff for your project, just read the directions in the back. It is very, very simple. For example, mix 2 ounces of the primer with 2 ounces of the catalyst and you're good to go. I got a quart of this primer. I'm pretty sure this should be plenty for what we're gonna do here today. Up next is from Eastwood as well. It's our 2-part ceramic coating gloss black paint. I also got a quart of this. This is gonna be plenty for all the parts that we have to do. Next up is going to be our undercoating or our sound deadening spray. This stuff comes from a company called Second Skin. I have used this stuff in the past on 2 different builds now. No, 3, I think 3. And I am very happy with the results. It definitely quiets down the inside of the Jeep, which is why we're gonna be using it here today. The actual name of this stuff is Spectrum, and the smallest amount they sell is a gallon, so that's what I bought here today. That should be more than enough for what we need it for. Last but not least is the forest green and the clear coat paint. This stuff I have used in the past I've used this company a few times actually, but originally when I painted the front fenders and the engine bay of the Jeep 4 years ago, and actually the rear quarters, I use this company as well. The company is called Automotive Touchup paint. Very, very generic. This is a 1-part paint that is ready to spray when you get it. Very, very simple. I think it came out great last time, which is why I chose this company this time. So that's like a quick explanation of what we got going on here. I've got a lot to do, so let's get to work.
I have a gravity-fed paint gun, also from Eastwood. This is going to be used to spray everything but the sound deadening material. In between every use, it'll have to be disassembled and cleaned very well so the paint or the clear coat, the primer, whatever it is inside that gun does not dry inside of it. Even before spraying, I haven't used this gun in a while, I took it apart, wiped it down with some acetone so we don't have any issues while spraying. This is black primer. Eastwood offers gray, black, and white. I chose black primer because we are not priming everything on this Jeep, only specific sections. So I figured I didn't want any overspray to be seen afterwards, say if we went with the gray. So that's the reason for the black primer. Usually that's not something you see. Usually I think people would use gray, so I'm just putting that out there. Now, since this is going to get absolutely everywhere, we didn't film much of the actual painting. I didn't exactly want overspray getting on my nice camera.
So last night we finished priming, and then throughout the night, every hour and a half, I came into the garage to make sure this fire was still going. The coldest temp I saw throughout the night outside, it's 32 right now, but it was 25 last night. And the coldest I saw it get in here, it was like 1 or 2 a.m., was 58 degrees. And throughout the rest of the night, it was at 60. So we kept this place very, very warm with this little fireplace. I'm very happy that we went and got this cord of wood. So we're gonna go check this out right now, see how our primer looks. And already it looks so awesome. So we got inside the engine bay here, we got these front wheel wells, we've got the unibody rails, and kind of on the back side of where the boat sides are gonna be, a little bit of that, because I'm not sure, we're gonna be painting that area. I'm not really sure what we're gonna do with that area yet. And then also over here, we got the Dana 60, that thing. We got really good covers on the 60. I made sure to get inside all the little crevices that we've got. Then over here, we've got the cross brace for the coilover towers, the outer two pieces for our 3-link cross member. We've got our unit bearings. Don't make fun of me for painting used unit bearings. We're gonna be getting new ones, but I didn't want those to be the only rusty thing on that axle. Then over here, we've got our rebuilt axle shafts, and then we've got a tie rod. So quite a bit of parts. All of this stuff hanging, minus the coilover tower cross brace, is gonna be painted gloss black. So I think that's what we're gonna do next. Next week, I did the rest of the spraying. This took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I sprayed the gloss black, then the sound editing, and lastly, the forest green and clear coat. I'm not gonna go into depth with all of this because it's not supposed to be the main focus of the video. I wanna get the 4.0 back in, the 60 back in, so this is just what we have to do before that. This is a lot more work than most people would probably do for an XJ, but this is just the way I like to do it. When there's this much to paint, it doesn't make sense to use a spray can or 100 of them. I don't mind spray cans for smaller jobs, but I think you understand what I'm saying. This just makes sense. Now, I'm not the best painter. I don't particularly enjoy doing this, but I don't mind painting the axles, the engine bay, or these other parts because they don't have to be perfect. It's not like painting the outside of a vehicle. I think when we get to the point of needing to paint the armor, the front fenders, the fender flares, I think we're gonna bring the Jeep to a legit paint shop to have that done. I know I could spend some time, figure it out, make it come out really good, but I think this time around I just like to drop it off, pick it up in a week, and not have to worry about a thing. Painting the outside of a vehicle and having it come out really good is a skill that takes time and practice. In the future, I'd love to practice that so I can use that skill next project. But this time around, I'd like to outsource the work so we can enjoy the Jeep out on the trail sooner than later. If y'all out west have paint shop suggestions, I'd love to hear them. Been a few days, but we have all of the painting done on the front of the Jeep. I know I didn't film all that much painting, but that's not really what this video is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about the engine, which we're gonna get to in just a second. But first, let's go check out this engine bay. So you can also see I started putting the front of the Jeep back together, all of the suspension. Y'all have seen me put this together literally dozens of times, so I figured that you wouldn't mind if I did it off camera. So we've got the coilovers in, we've got the bump stops, we've got our track bar in place for right now. Dana 60 obviously is in as well. Our limit straps, our links, almost everything is in there for good now. There's a little bit more work I have to do to the links and the track bar and the drag link, but for now we're gonna move on to the engine. For the most part, I mean, I'm not a painter whatsoever. I don't like painting, I don't like body work, but for the most part, this came out very, very nice. These coilover towers look amazing along with that cross member over there. We've got a nice clear coat on everything up here. I think it looks really good. Now it's time to get to the meat of this video. We are going to be putting in the engine, the transmission, and the transfer case. It took me literally about 2 weeks to do all this painting and get to this point. Definitely a little longer than I would have hoped, but I had to make sure that was done right. That is a very important part to this puzzle. With that being said, I am not behind schedule. I have a whole schedule set on what needs to get done and when. As long as I can get this engine, this transmission, and transfer case in this weekend, and get some drivelines ordered, then I will be in the clear. I need to stay on schedule with this Jeep if I want to get it done for Eastwood Jeep Safari, which it's gonna be there. It'll be there. With that being said, let's take a look at these beautifully engineered pieces we have on the table. This is the Ironman 4x4 4.0 engine bracket kit. We've got 2 brackets to put onto our 4.0 along with the actual motor mounts and some hardware. This kit is the way to go. You can see on this bracket, so let's look at this one. This one, I think this is the passenger side. You can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolt holes. Then on this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolt holes. That is a lot more than stock. Let's go look at the 4.0 over here. So you can see right here, this is the 4.0 for the Resurrection Cherokee. You can see our bracket only has 3 bolts on it. We're gonna be removing this bracket and the one on the other side and replacing them with the brackets from Ironman 4x4. Now, there's an advantage to those new brackets that we just got. Since they bolt onto the engine with many more bolts, they are much less prone to ripping off of the engine. Personally, I have never seen that happen, but I know with heavy off-roading, maybe doing fast stuff in the desert, it is definitely a possibility. We are going to be being on this thing in the rocks, not so much in doing fast stuff in the desert, although I'm sure it will happen. So this is going to be a nice peace of mind. We know that we're not gonna have a problem here. And then we've got these really, really nice motor mounts. I really like those. They seem very well built, I'll tell you that. Same thing goes with the brackets. Ironman has been a partner of this build in the past, and when they found out that my engine mounts from a competitor failed me, they told me they had just the solution. So I am very grateful to Ironman for supporting this channel and this build. Let's get these onto the Jeep.
When we first started the resurrection of this Cherokee, I had no aspirations to remove this engine. We originally had no reason to, and I knew if we did, we'd be adding a lot of time to this build. Well, here we are. If we hadn't pulled the 4.0, I wouldn't have been able to weld up the coilover towers correctly inside of the engine bay, and we definitely wouldn't have been able to paint thoroughly, so pulling this engine was definitely the right move. The past couple of videos, I've gotten a lot of messages about building the 4.0 or doing this or that to it while it's out. We're not doing that because we already did 4 years ago. As many of you know, 4 years ago was the first resurrection of this Jeep. Part of that first build was pulling the blown 4.0 out. I picked up a junkyard 4.0 and I brought it to an engine builder who tore it down completely and rebuilt it with all new parts. It's not a stroker, it's not anything cool like that. The only things done to it is it's got a small cam, it's slightly bored out, it's got the coil pack swap, and we swapped out the 0331 head so we wouldn't have an issue with the head cracking down the road. All of that, and it's still been a total dog on the highway. Now, we've had one issue with this engine since, while we were the furthest away from home we could possibly be, but that's a story for another day. She's good now. Wow, did I get off track? We're supposed to be talking about motor mounts. Some of the holes that we'll be using didn't have any bolts in them, so they'll need to be cleaned out. A little bit rusty. I'd recommend running a tap through them, use some brake clean and some shop air, you're good to go. Ironman didn't send me any washers with these bolts. I like the look of the washers, so I went out and got some. Do what you'd like to do, either way is right. I'd also recommend installing all the bolts finger tight, Loctite of your choice, and then tighten them down to spec.
This bracket is on. Oh, focus, come on. But you can see right here, I got a space for this one. All the other ones are flat, except for this one. And that space, let me remove this. That space is for this bracket. So I just checked it off camera actually, just to make sure we weren't gonna have a problem, because I'm gonna leave this off for now. And that still slides in there, no problem. So we're gonna be able to bolt that up, no problem, once the engine's already in. So I'm gonna leave this one off for now. passenger side is in now. We had to move the alternator to get these 2 bolts in. Not a problem. We just had to loosen this bolt, take that out, loosen this one, move it upwards, get those 2 bolts in. There used to be 2 studs here. They are the grounding studs for the block. They have a few wires that go to them. Once we put this motor in and go to connect those wires, we're just gonna be removing these, putting those grounds in the same exact spot and retightening those bolts. So not a problem there. Got a few bolts down here. Everything went just fine. Same thing with this driver's side. Got all the bolts in, no problems. Now, I'm really excited to get this thing in. Let's figure out those mounts.
These brackets are beefy. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Now that I think of it, if you're building a 4.0 with much more power than stock, say a stroker, these brackets and these motor mounts are what you're going to need right here. We're not doing that, but like I said, we're gonna be banging this thing around on the rocks. The absolute last thing we want is our engine falling out. So now that's something I will never need to worry about. Now I have to install the unibody engine mount brackets. These are stock. I only removed them to paint the unibody correctly. The actual brackets were painted previously, so we didn't have to worry about that this time around. Our Ironman motor mounts are going to attach right to these.
So these are in place. The brackets are completely bolted down. These are a little loose right now. They're held on, but just a little loose. We're gonna leave them like that because I'm not sure exactly where they need to be. So once we get the engine in place, get the through bolts in, then we'll get those tightened down. So now, let's go ahead and drop this down, see if we can get this engine sitting in there. Finally got a nice view of this thing. It's not way up in the air. It looks so good. Look at those coilover towers and those coilovers. Wow, it looks so sick. I can't wait to see that cross member in here. Oh, it's gonna be so sick. That looks so clean, huh? Nice green paint. I love that. That's so sweet. And just so everyone knows, this firewall has the same sound deadening material that we sprayed on the underneath of the Jeep. Same thing with the inside of the Jeep on the floor. It all has the same sound deadening material. I really like this stuff. You can see, obviously, I mean, we did this one 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. Still looks really good, just a little dirty. But I think that looks so good. Here is that well-done steering box brace that we messed with a few videos back. Well, quite a few videos back. We put new spacers on here. Actually, that one and that one. And actually, we did all 3 now that I think of it. There's another one right there. That's all painted for our screen now. Looks so good. I can't wait to see the engine in here. So since the Jeep is sitting at such a weird angle, I got the front end coming way down over here. I did jack it up a little bit just so we can get that jack or the hoist underneath the axle and the tie rod. This side's lining up pretty nicely, but since it's sitting at that weird angle and since I don't have, like, I'm only using a chain, I can't bring this forward to tilt the motor back. I took the Ironman bracket off of this side, not the bracket, the actual motor mount off. So we should be able to get this engine to sit a little lower now that way and push it backwards, and then I'll be able to put that in afterwards.
That's exactly what I did. My recommendation would be to leave the motor mounts off altogether, get the engine in place, and slide them in afterwards. There is plenty of room to do it that way, and it would probably be a little easier than what I just did.
Wow, that is a really good sight. It is currently, I don't even know what time it is right now. Currently 1 a.m., literally 12:53, and I finally have this engine in. I really wanted to get the engine and the transmission in today. Well, yesterday. So I got the engine in, that is definitely a plus. Without scratching the coilover towers, that is definitely a plus. I actually dinged one of them on that passenger side, but it's all right. I don't think it even chipped it, which is really good. But yeah, I'm gonna call that a win, and we're gonna pick up on the transmission in a couple hours. All right, it is the next day. Ash and I just finished filming, well, not filming, we just finished doing our YouTube live that some of you probably were watching. But if you didn't, we did it right here, right in front of the Resurrection Cherokee. If you missed that, you can still go watch it on our channel. Just go to our channel and then go to live. And the recording will be right there. As for the rest of the day, I think we can get this Jeep running today. There's quite a bit to do. We're gonna get this transmission in next, but honestly, there's not much to this. Let's see what we can make happen. I am so wrong. There is an insane amount of work to do in this engine bay, but we'll get to that in a little bit. As for the transmission, I did have an issue with getting it in at first. I had to take it back down after fighting with it for a while, and I found that the torque converter wasn't fully seated. Once I pushed it in all the way, the transmission made it with the engine, no issue. Also to know, I loosened the motor mounts a hair so the engine dipped back slightly, just for easier access to the top bell housing bolts. There is an absolute ton that has to be done in this engine bay. I gotta do a lot of custom work to get all of these brackets to go where they need to go. I got a lot of rerouting for a lot of stuff in here. For example, the battery usually goes right here on the passenger side. I thought I was gonna have enough room. I thought I was gonna be able to clear these reservoirs, but it looks like if I push it down too far, then it's gonna interfere with these AC lines. Now, we do have more room over there. I think the steering box might get in the way and the pump. I don't have those things in yet, so we're gonna hold off on the battery. I've got a ton of other things that we can be doing in here. We've got to mount the ECM somewhere over there. I'm not too worried about that yet though. I think the first order of business is probably finding a spot for the fuse box, and I think usually that goes right where all this stuff is, but I think I'm gonna be able to snake it right inside of here. And then we will have to find, so this is actually the bracket for the fuse box right here. I think I'm gonna be able to modify this and get that to work somehow. We've got the coil pack that we've got to do something with. I think this is gonna be able to go the bottom of the tower here. I wish I would have already drilled holes for it while the engine was out, but I think we're gonna be able to manage. We've got quite a bit of room over here. And we've got the coolant reservoir, we've got the windshield washer reservoir, not super important. I think those two things, this coolant reservoir, if the battery goes over there, the coolant reservoir can probably go right here. Washer reservoir, I mean, that can go anywhere, hopefully somewhere over there though. So yeah, let's try to modify the bracket for this, and we'll try to get that shoved in where we think it should fit. Wow, this is really weird. So I just cut off these two little tabs. There's two of these that are on that fuse box bracket. These two tabs that I cut off are for the coolant reservoir because they're not gonna be mounted together. So I cut them off to save a little room. And this bracket, it's a super weird shape. With how I have it set right here. So that is, now that tab, there's two tabs at the bottom. That tab is flat against the fender well. And then this other tab, you can kind of see it right there. It is flat against that weird curve of the unibody rail. So literally, I mean, that's mounted at a weird angle, but I can open that cover no problem. All I have to do is do a self tapper down there and probably put a 1/4 inch bolt with a nut on the other side of it over here. That works out super well. This is so weird. It's like this bracket was made for coilover towers to be right here. So I don't have the fuse box, it's right here. I don't have it on the bracket right now just so I can show you all this, but I have a 1/4 inch bolt. There was already a threaded hole on the inner fender well. So I literally just bolted that into place. Now I did put a nut on the back just because it's a thin fender wall. You can see it right there. And this piece, I think, so let me try to show y'all. You can see how the unibody is weirdly shaped right there. It kind of goes down at a slope, and you can see that this bracket literally follows that slope. Now, it is about maybe a 1/2 inch away from it, so I think the best way to go about this, I think I'm gonna leave it alone for now, but I think I'm gonna get some sort of spacer and then just drill a hole right there, put the spacer, and then it'll sit literally perfect. But for now, let's just put the fuse box here and we can call that good and move on.
So we got our harness right here. It literally just wraps around here, kind of goes over the coilover, which is just fine. You can see our fuse box, that is literally the spot for it. And I can take this cover off, no problem. That is like a literal perfect spot for that. Now I am worried about it being a little bit closer to the engine. I'm wondering if that might be a problem, but for now I think this is gonna be just fine. Now this is a 2000 Jeep Cherokee. The 2000s and the 2001s, they're coil pack motors. So on my 98, I have a distributor. On this motor, we have a coil pack. But since they can be unreliable, I swapped to this little coil pack right here. This is from one of those Dodge Vipers. Very common mod for these 2001s. And, which means I have spark plug wires as well now. So this swap, I bought it from a company called K Suspension. It comes with that coil pack, all the wires, and a little bracket for it. We're not gonna be able to use that bracket anymore, but we still will be able to use this coil pack. We can put this mounted, there's just 4 bolt holes on it. We can mount it right to the side of the coilover tower. So I think this is a really good spot for it, kind of keeps it hidden under there. But I'm gonna have to take this coilover tower out to drill holes for that, so we're gonna leave it just for now. I'm gonna have to get longer wires and stuff anyways. Now let's move on to something a little more fun. So obviously we've got our intake, goes right under here under this rag, and the stock design, it comes up this way, and then there's a big old box that sits right here. That box is not gonna work anymore. We've got this massive coilover tower in the way, and the piping would hit this cross member either way. So I'm very limited on what I can do over here for an intake. But as many of y'all Cherokee and maybe MJ guys know, there is a solution to this. This is the THOR intake system. This is a very popular kit from Trailheads Off-Road, aka THOR, and we are gonna be using this today because we literally have no other option. This kit is gonna reroute our intake system from the stock configuration to behind this cross member. It's gonna go over the motor and into the cowl right over here. I've found that online people either love this kit or they hate it. Mostly, I mean, the biggest complaint I've found online is that it's very noisy because we're gonna be cutting a hole in this cowl, so that intake is going to be sucking basically, I mean, right in front of where we're driving. So people say they can hear it more than a stock configuration or maybe a snorkel going up the side of the Jeep. But like I said, we literally don't have an option. So we're going to be finding out for ourselves whether this really is that noisy. A few people told me to make my own intake along the same lines as this one. I do like that idea, and I still can in the future. Right now, I've come to the realization that if I continue making every small thing for this Jeep myself, it will never be done. I like this kit. As it sits in front of me, it seems quality, so I'm happy with it so far. Whether it's noisy or not once we get this thing running is a whole nother story. We can worry about that when the time comes. Maybe we can insulate the inside of this cowl or something. So you can see, got my hole cut, and we don't want to open it up as much as this. We want to open it just enough to get this filter into there, which I think I did a pretty good job of. If you open it up too much, kind of like I did at this bottom corner, then the possibility of that hole showing when you're done, yeah, you can't really see it. I can move it over slightly and you will never see that. But if you cut this wrong, then you can probably see the hole that you cut once that's installed, and we don't want that. But looks like I got a pretty good hole. This thing fits in there nice and tight. It's got just enough room in there. It's touching the bottom and the top. But we're gonna go ahead and install the pipe, the filter, and that piece. They all get installed as one unit. I'd like to get a PSC hydro assist system eventually, the box, the pump, the reservoir, the ram, everything. But for now, we're gonna put in a stock pump and steering box, and hopefully before the Rubicon we can change that. Next order of business is this battery. I bought them out specifically for the Optimas. It will work with a little bit of modification. It has 4 tabs for bolts to mount to the Jeep. I cut off 3 of those tabs and re-welded them in locations that will work for me. After looking into it some more, I concluded that the battery will fit on the passenger side, its original location, which is great because now we won't need to make new battery cables. All said and done, we will have very minimal interference with the coil over reservoir hoses and those AC lines. As many of you know, this is an AGM battery, which means it's okay to mount sideways like this. We could even mount this thing upside down if we wanted to, which I probably would have done under the Jeep if we couldn't get it to work in this engine bay. Now, one of the last things we need to find a home for is this ECM. This was a tough one. Room in here is super limited. I already mounted the coolant reservoir on the driver's side. It takes up a lot of room. I'll show you that in a second. And the ECM can only go in so many spots because it's limited by the length of the harness. I decided to mount it above the intake. I feel like this will be controversial. Either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. I spent way too much time on this. I revised the bracket, I think 4 times, but I like it a lot and I'll explain my reasoning for putting it here. All right, I just remade this bracket. Literally, I don't even know. I think this is the third or fourth. But I wasn't happy with any of them. I'm still not 100% happy with this one, but this is gonna work for right now, so we're gonna stick with this. So this is where our ECM is gonna go. I'm gonna pull this off so we can all see it though. So there's our bracket. This is bolted on by 3 bolts. It was supposed to be 4. There's another one under here, but I kind of messed it up. But it still seems to be pretty sturdy. This is bolted on by the wiper motor bolts. There are 4 studs that hold that wiper motor on under the cowl. They come through the firewall, and there's actually enough thread to stick that 1/8 inch plate in there as well. Let me turn that up. There is literally just enough thread. It's right at the end of the nut, so it should work just fine. The corner over here at the bottom is very close to the valve cover, so when I remake this bracket, I'm gonna shift this over just a little bit, probably like 1 inch or so. Not even 1 inch, maybe like 1/2 inch. I'm very close to getting this thing running, so I'd like to move on. Now, another thing, this ECM and these connectors are very close to the hood, but they do not hit. I think all said and done, we'll probably have about a 1/2 inch of clearance between the top of these connectors and the hood, which is just enough. Now, originally, I had these brackets. I had 2 of these that helped bolt it onto the ECM and then onto those studs on the firewall. I like this design a lot, actually, but I wanted some sort of heat shield, if you will, so that is why we made it out of one big plate. I'm hoping that this will soak up some of the heat coming off of the engine before it can get to the ECM. And I was actually just given a suggestion to put some heat shielding, like some tape stuff underneath of this bracket, so that would actually help quite a bit as well. But for now, that's just fine. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna get this bolted into place. Another thing, actually, I will have to rewire this first connector, because you can see this part of the harness goes down to the headlight assembly. So I'm gonna run that down there, and then I'm gonna lengthen right about here. And then these other 2 are connected to this giant lead right here, so we won't have to do any work to that. That one will be just fine. But yeah, not a bad spot. I mean, we literally didn't have any other spots but that ECM. I don't know. I was afraid of tucking it in here. That would have been kind of tough. I was afraid of, water hitting it a little much. Probably would have been fine. I think that is probably our best bet. I've been hard at work getting everything in place in this engine bay, and as of right now, I think everything has a home. There's still a little bit of work I have to do, but I think we're ready to try to start the Jeep. It should start. It ran perfectly fine when we disconnected everything and pulled it out, but it's a big moment for the Jeep build. So, I mean, I've been checking this thing all over. We did an oil change. I put all new fluids inside of here. I think we're ready to go. Let's try it. I made sure we got fuel in it, so I don't know. Let's see. And we got power. I got the battery out of my red Jeep in here. And we got oil pressure right now. That was good. Wow, that intake is super loud. Let's open up a door. It just calmed down now. Sounded like it was missing for a sec, but now it doesn't. It's got good oil pressure. We're at 40 PSI. Half a tank of fuel. The battery is charging. Not bad. Let's check it out up here. Like I said, we've got a lot that still needs to be done here, but we've definitely made a lot of really good progress. Let me jump up here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's running good. That intake is super loud, especially when it first started. It was really loud. You could hear, that was the only thing you could hear inside of here. Definitely quiet down. It was just like that first couple seconds. But yeah, I still gotta find a home for this coil pack. This is gonna go right onto this coilover tower on the inside here, so it's gonna be hitting away pretty nicely. Got the ECM in a good spot. I've had one last spot for something, and that's where I put the windshield washer fluid reservoir. So I'm glad we were able to make that work. Really happy with this battery, the coolant reservoir. I had to do a lot of rewiring over here for this ECM plug because it was a little too short, but that's where our ECM is gonna live. A few people told me I was gonna have issues with water getting into it, but I don't have any hood louvers or anything, so I don't think that's gonna be an issue. But that is so cool. All we need is drive shafts now, and we could at least pull this thing out of the garage under its own power. It doesn't have brakes, but I guess that'll be one of the next things we do. I hope you all are enjoying the longer videos. I know there's a lot of time in between each video now. I mean, this video took me about a month to make, but doing it that way, I'm able to fit more content into the video, and I'm able to make like a 40+ minute video, which I do think y'all like. Eventually, I would love to make more videos each month, but I am focusing a lot of my time to actually getting this thing done because there is a deadline for this thing. This thing, I want it to be at Easter Jeep Safari, and we're closing in. I mean, we got less than 3 months now. We got an absolute ton done this video. I mean, we got this thing running. That is obviously a huge step in the right direction. Once I'm done filming this, I'm gonna be working on the next video. We're gonna be doing rear suspension work. Hopefully we can get some brakes on this. We can put some drive lines in, and then I don't know, maybe take it for a test drive. Next video, we will at least pull this thing out of the shop under its own power. That is the plan. And then after all that, that leaves the body work. You know, the Notch Custom fender flares, we gotta paint everything. There's a lot of work there. But I think before the body work, we're gonna be taking this thing to Moab to put it to the test on the trail. It's not gonna look that pretty. She's gonna look a little incomplete, but I think y'all would like to see that just as much as me. Also, don't forget about the BCB FAB hat. They are super limited edition. Once they're gone, they're gone. I will never be making them again. Each hat is gonna come in a bundle with a hat, a Resurrection Cherokee patch, a Backcountry Beagles logo sticker, and a Resurrection Cherokee blueprint sticker. You're definitely getting a lot for your money. A huge thank you to Iron Man for supporting this video. Those motor mounts are exactly what this 4.0 needed. Iron Man makes super quality parts, and I am super happy with them. When I originally mentioned on a previous video that I needed motor mounts, I had a ton of people telling me I needed to look into the Iron Man motor mount kit. And I will say, I'm definitely not disappointed. Huge thank you to Iron Man for supporting this video, this channel, and this build. I won't keep you all too long. I gotta get back to work on this thing as soon as possible. I appreciate y'all for watching. I'll see you on the trail, and I'll see you next time.
That